So today I'm going to talk about the proposed legislation. You can find the instructions in your Congressional Simulation Workbook. It's on page 24. Note that it's worth 75 points, and that's important. This is an opportunity to make up a lot of points in this course if you do it correctly. And so it's important that you spend time thinking about this project, thinking about really good ideas, doing some research. I can be part of that process. You can meet with me and we can talk about this. You can also send your work to me in advance of handing it in for a grade as usual. So there's some things I really want to point out here. One of them is that you need to read the assignment very carefully. It's very, very important. I know it's a lot of text, so it looks a little scary, but as I've said before, students discover after they get into it, it's like, oh, that was really, really easy, because the instructions are very detailed and should be very helpful, and I'm always available to answer questions. So you want to read this. There's two components here. One is the legislation, and the second one is when you hand in the legislation, you also need to hand in the legislation rationale. And that's a checkpoint, because if you can't answer the questions that you need to answer in the legislation rationale, it suggests that you are off topic. You have done something incorrect. And so this is a way to avoid getting a bad grade. So it's a checkpoint as well. So I will not grade the legislation unless you have that checkpoint submitted as well. Now you may examine actual bills. That's very easy to go out on the web and you can search bills to get ideas, but do not simply copy and paste an existing bill. And I will look for that. You want to put it in your own language. You can exercise a certain amount of creativity as you do this as well. Now on this page here, I have some definitions. Types of bills and legislative measures, and these are important. Again, it's a vocabulary issue. One of your project will fall under one of these. It could be a bill, a joint resolution, concurrent resolution. So it's really important that you read the descriptions there and understand it. It'll also give you this a designation like HR versus S. So you are representing somebody in the House, and so it will be along that line. If it's in the Senate, you would see the S for the Senate. So you want to make sure you get that correct. So what I did is basically I went line by line here. You can see I've numbered lines. And if you actually look at the example of legislation just beyond where the description is here, you can see that everything is explained line by line. It's fairly easy to do. There's a grading rubric here, so you can see how the points are spread across. So here is the example that I talk about in the description where I go line by line. Now, there will be no number on your legislation when you submit it, because it is the House clerk who will assign the number. So in this case it would have been HR and nothing, and then the clerk would have assigned the number. Use the date of submission for your assignment, so you want to check that out. You also want to make sure you're identifying the correct Congress. That changes. You know, some of these things that I have, for example, this is from 2013. So you will need to look up and see what session we are in currently. Here's says a bill. Remember I said I put the definitions there for you to do. So you will have a long title, you'll have a short title. And this is really, really key here. Notice section 2 says findings and purpose. And so this particular bill that I'm going to show you does a really nice job of defining what the problem is that this piece of legislation seeks to fix. And so you can see here the Supreme Court has found language nearly identical to the Gun-Free School Zone Act to be unconstitutional. You should remember that as the Lopez case from your U.S. government course. So what they're trying to do here is actually change some language. they've defined the problem. Here's another bill I have as well. And in this one, it does a very good job of explaining what the bill does as far as being the solution to the problem. And this one includes penalties, so it also has penalties, those kinds of things. So you want to examine this. So that top part, the findings and purpose, is what is the problem that your bill will solve. And then in further down, here you can see in section 3 is the solution. Now, each bill is obviously going to look different, right? And so as you're out there looking at actual bills, you'll see that. I'm thinking for this assignment, a bill that's about 2 pages long should be sufficient. I don't make these big, complicated 10-page bills. That's not necessary for this exercise. The other thing that the second example shows is effective date. That's the date that this legislation, if it passes through Congress, will become law. Generally, you want a little bit of a gap period because you may have to get some agencies to do rulemaking. You have to publish this so the public knows that this is a new law in effect. So, maybe it'll pass in November, but you might want to give 6 months or even a year. So depending on the particulars of your bill, some common sense is needed there. So you have examples to look at. You have this line by line to look at as well. And I will post an example of a student's bill. You can see I put some corrections on it. But again, it demonstrates what a student bill would look like. So, read the assignment carefully. Make sure that you stay in character. You want to be representing the viewpoint of the person that you're representing in the congressional simulation. You also want to make sure that the bill that you are going to submit is consistent with the jurisdiction of that committee. And so you could go to house.gov and you can actually research the legislative jurisdiction of the particular committee that you've been assigned to. So you must stay in character and you must produce a bill consistent with the committee that your member has been assigned for the purpose of this simulation. And then following all of that is simply a rationale. So there's 3 questions here that you want to make sure that you can answer. This only needs to be a paragraph long. As I said, it's a checkpoint just to make sure that you remain in character, that the bill that you submit is consistent with your member's views and the committee he or she has been assigned to. That way the simulation itself works much better if everybody is following the rules. So that's it. You can always talk to me if you have questions.